Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Big Bluecast. Today is Thursday, September the 24th. We're going to talk a little bit of basketball stuff here to start out, just a little bit, because there's really not a whole lot to talk about right now. We're kind of, with UK basketball, really college basketball in general, we're kind of in a state of limbo right now because we don't really know what our schedule is going to be. And at least for the moment, we don't really know what the official roster is going to be until we get some news on Olivier Sarr. Um, that's really what I wanted to touch on before we launch into football today. Really, over the last couple of days, there's been news that came out indicating that the NCAA has actually had Olivier Sarr cleared for some time now, and that now we're just waiting for the SEC to grant him a waiver as well, because apparently in the SEC bylaws, because he's a non-graduate transfer with only 1 year of eligibility remaining, he still has to get a conference waiver. So here we are, still just kind of waiting. To me, it seems like we're a little bit closer to getting what we want, which is getting Olivier Sarr totally cleared to just suit up for us this year. I just wanted to touch on that a little bit, just because that's really about the only thing going on with basketball right now. What are your kind of thoughts on that? Just the fact that now the SEC and the conference has to give him the okay.
Come on, SEC. What are you waiting on? I mean,
Yeah, right.
it almost aggravates you to a point. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, so we've thought it's NCAA this whole time, and who's to say that it hasn't been them until just recent weeks
yeah,
or a recent week or two? After enough pressure from some of the bigger entities in the industry like Dick Vitale. So I think he's one that kind of broke it out that it's the SEC that they're
yeah,
held up on. So who
yeah,
knows? They need to hurry up, though. I mean, it's
yeah.
getting crunch
And
time.
exactly. And various reports that I'd seen just kind of scanning through social media and stuff and looking at different articles and everything, most people were kind of corroborating that the NCAA has basically had him cleared for a while now, for at least a number of weeks, and it just never really came out, never really said anything. And I guess there was an understanding that it's really the SEC, so they just didn't make a big deal of it. But here's the thing I don't understand. If I like The reason I don't understand why they haven't just gone ahead and cleared him is because if I'm working in the office at the SEC, what do you honestly have to gain by not clearing him to play this year? Right? I mean,
If anything else, you want ratings to be high, and the better the Kentucky team
exactly.
performs in basketball, the better. I mean, yeah, let's face it,
Yeah,
football, Kentucky, for what it is in his football team, does decent in ratings, but let's face it, it's
sure.
Alabama, it's Auburn, it's Georgia, it's LSU. Then we kind of fall into the mix somewhere else depending on the season we're having.
Right. We're in the
And
middle.
but in basketball, nobody else comes close to the ratings that we get.
Right. Like we're the creme de la creme in the SEC in terms of just star power and everything. I mean, we might not always be the overall best team, depending on the year we're having, but we are the biggest name, the biggest brand. To me, if I'm working at the SEC, if I'm the commissioner, I'm thinking I have nothing to gain by making Kentucky a worse team. Like there's nothing to gain by us being a good team. There's everything to gain by us being a really good team. So do you want us to be just a middling top 25 team? Do you want us to be a national title contender starting the year in the top five? I don't understand why they would deny his eligibility. So
I don't know.
I'm
Maybe they
pretty
think if other
confident.
teams have a better shot at beating us, it might raise those fans' ratings up. I mean,
Just
but
comp.
even
Yeah,
then, it's you want
yeah,
the best team for your other teams to play because it's going to raise the ratings on a national level.
exactly.
If we're doing
Exactly.
good, if we're in the top 10, there's a really good chance that even people who are non-Kentucky fans are going to go,
Right.
"Hey, let's watch the game." I don't know how many Duke or North Carolina games I've sat down and watched just because it was a big game.
Yeah. I mean, with Olivier Sarr, we are a bigger ticket. We are a bigger moneymaker, a bigger draw this year, just flat out. So I'm hoping that means relatively soon. I mean, hopefully it's soon because goodness, Olivier Sarr, he committed to Kentucky in early May. So we're very quickly approaching him having to wait 5 months at least.
Yeah.
I mean, here in the next couple of weeks, we're going to hit the 5 month mark that he's been waiting just to hear if he's allowed to play or not, which to me is ridiculous. understand why it should take more than a couple weeks to get this kind of stuff figured out. I mean, nothing's changed between now and then. The facts still remain the same. It's just a lot of heel dragging, and it's really frustrating.
Well, part of it may be too where Mitch Barnhart's
Yeah.
probably in a little bit different predicament this year.
Well, yeah, true. That's true.
He can't really put as much pressure because he's
Yeah.
committee chairman. So
Yeah, he can't just like twist an arm to kind of sway them. I get that, yeah, I guess, but I don't know. Hopefully, just so we'll at least kind of know where we are. 'Cause like I said, I mean, granted, we still have a couple months until the season tips off, but due to just the unique circumstances this year, for the schedule to still kind of just be up in the air as to who we're going to play and when we're going to play and how that's going to work, how many games we're going to play, uh, and to just still be waiting for that final piece of the roster. It's just kind of crazy for it to be late September, almost October, and we're still just waiting to kind of see what the complexion of our season is going to be. Um, so really, for right now, I mean, that's really all there is to say.
yeah,
on
there's not much
Kentucky
more to
basketball.
say on it. I mean, other than
Yeah,
I guess you could tie it in with football players waiting for approval. So
right. Kind of the same deal. For except for right now, there's really not a whole lot else to say. Hopefully, over the next coming weeks, we're going to have some more stuff to throw in. And once we have a schedule and we know exactly who we're going to have on the team that can play, we'll be able to really dive in and preview the season and get things rolling on the basketball side of things. Is there anything else you wanted to really touch on basketball wise, or?
that's about it. I mean, there's really nothing
Yeah.
new that I've seen at least.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I really just wanted to kind of touch on that here at the beginning. Really, I almost thought about just tabling it because there's not much. I mean,
Well, and
so,
let's face it, by the time this video gets published, then
yeah,
he actually may be eligible. Who knows? I hope, but
I was thinking that just a little bit ago. I thought really we're probably gonna. I decided to go ahead and let's just throw this in. I thought by the time we get this actually, going live, there's probably going to be news that comes out. That'll be our luck. But yeah, it's a little bit of news, but it's really still not news because we're still exactly where we were. Now our guns just pointed from the NCAA to the conference. So, but hopefully the fact that it's out of the NCAA's hands, hopefully that's a good sign that things are going in our favor and we're going to get the result we want. Um, anyway, so launching into football, I mean, that's going to be the bread and butter of what we're talking about today and probably what we're talking about for a while because let's face it, basketball's still a couple months off, and less than 48 hours we kick off the football season with our first game. So what I wanted to do here first was really just kind of dive into kind of the Mark Stoops era up to this point briefly, kind of the journey we've been on the last 8 years, and talk about the team we have this year and kind of what we're expecting, what we're hoping to see, that sort of thing. Like I said, we're in year 8 of the Mark Stoops era. We're getting ready to start year 8 of the Mark Stoops era. We've seen some lows. We started out, picking up the mess that Joker left. 2-10 season, no conference wins. We've seen heights of 9 conference wins and a bold victory over Penn State. So it's been all over the map. Along this kind of journey we've been on over the last 8 years, we've seen a lot of just widely varying opinions on Mark Stoops and just the program in general. What are your kind of overarching thoughts on the Mark Stoops era up to this point?
I think Kentucky fans in general need to kind of take a step back and
Yeah,
realize that
right.
football is not basketball. You don't sit there and go have a terrible team and then recruit 6 new fresh faces
Right.
and then immediately have a turnaround. Football takes a long time, and I think
Yeah,
that Stoops has done an amazing job. This was a program
absolutely.
that has been in shambles since
Yeah,
Joker Phillips was replaced,
right.
and for him to bring it back to where it is right now, that's a major accomplishment. Um,
Huge.
so kudos to UK for giving him the opportunity to do it, and I hope Mitch Barnhart's ready to pull out the pocketbook and dish some cash out to keep him here because he's starting to become a national interest.
Absolutely. Like you were kind of saying, a big key word here is patience because he can't just, 2013, he couldn't be expected to just do what John Calipari did in 1 year, bring in John Wall and Cousins and those kind of guys and just turn around in 1 year. We would have years where maybe we underperform where we thought we should be, and you had a lot of people screaming, fire him, like get somebody else. Well, one, who are you going to go get? Like, what exactly are we going to go get somebody better than him as Kentucky football? I don't know. It's been very interesting to just see that over the last 7 or 8 years or so, to see all the different just people taking up for him, and then we have years where we are just awesome, for our standards. And that's the thing too, is in a lot of ways, like there's such a bias, like you said, because we're so used to kind of, well, at least most of us, we Kentucky basketball is kind of our bread and butter, and we're also Kentucky football fans. And we expect, like, our expectations are just so high because, like, that's kind of our bias. So the fact that they've given Mark Stoops the kind of just patience and the time, well, we may as well, let's face it, let's say Mark Stoops and Vince Marrow to go and recruit and recruit and recruit and just build this program up into what it is now and what, we're projecting it could be in the next 4 or 5 years. It's pretty amazing. And here we are starting year 8, and it's going to be a really interesting year because we're really highly touted for us. We're starting ranked in the Associated Press, number 23, ranked in the AP poll for the first time in like decades, and we have a bit more of a veteran squad. We've got some guys that have been good for a couple years, and now they're actually going to be upperclassmen. Our offensive and defensive line are hyped up to be amongst the best guys up front in the country. It's going to be different though than what we've had the last couple of years, because at least unless there's breakout potential on this team, we're not going to have like a Benny Snell or a Josh Allen or a Lynn Bowden, something like that. We'll have to more just rely on an entire unit and not like 1 or 2 stars that can kind of drag us to our goals. Looking at kind of the complexion of the team from that standpoint, 16 returning starters. What do you think just kind of overall about the pieces we have coming into this year?
I think we're going to have a decent offense, and I think our defensive line is still going to be okay. That did need some work from last year. It was definitely not the defense we had in years past. My biggest question is the quarterback. Is Terry Wilson going to play 100%, or is he only going to give us 90 because he has some fear of re-injuring?
Yeah.
And it's understandable if he does, but if he's hesitating on making anything when he has guys coming at him for real, not just teammates, could have a major impact on how the game turns out.
Yeah, big difference between, running drills, running sprints, doing full contact practice, but wearing the red jersey and knowing you're not going to get hit. So, going against, we have an all SEC schedule. We're going to dive into here in a minute. We're going to be facing really good defenses. A lot of questions there. Is he still going to be able to run? As a dual threat quarterback, is that knee going to hold him back significantly? Is he going to look really good running if he has to scramble? Is the offensive line going to be as good as they're being advertised? Are they going to be able to give him the protection he needs? And even then, if they're able to, and he can kind of hunker down in the pocket, is he going to be able to like have a good pass percentage with any consistency? Or are we going to see up and down, up and down? We've seen a lot of that in the Stoops era where we're trying to get, just a quarterback who can consistently, get the passes where they need to be. And then even when that's happening, we've got guys he's throwing to who get hit in the chest and they drop the passes. And, I feel like a lot of deja vu moments over the last 8 years where regardless of who the offensive coordinator is, it's what's this guy thinking? Why are we doing this? Why can't these guys like catch? What's going on with the wide receivers coach? What's the deal? It's really for Kentucky football, a lot of hype just going into preseason and what people, think we should be. And like I said, still, especially when you have a starting quarterback coming off, of, going to have to shake a lot of rust off and coming off of a very severe injury. I mean, patellar tendon complete tear is nothing to sneeze at. That's a very significant for a dual threat quarterback, a guy who's expected to run a lot. That's really significant. So a lot of question marks coming into week one. Kind of looking ahead at our schedule here, very unique year for everybody in college football. We're doing 10, instead of the traditional 12 games, we're doing 10 games all SEC, like we kind of alluded at in the last episode. Everybody knows this is going to be a really, really hard schedule. No tune-up games, nothing like that. We get Georgia, Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida makes up half of our schedule, which to me is just crazy. Like when you say it out loud, it's nuts.
Yeah, the biggest teams we got to play all season are all away.
Yeah, we get Georgia at home, and then the other 4 big ones are all on the road.
Yeah,
which is insanity. So really looking at 10 games, half of them we will be underdogs. Going into week one against Auburn, we're going to be 10.5 point underdog, and just with all the uncertainties, I mean, it makes sense. We should be a drastic underdog until we show we can live up to the hype, in my opinion. But looking at this schedule for what it is, well, first of all, my first big question is I guess kind of twofold. One, what do you think just overall about, we probably touched on this in the last episode a little bit, but what do you think? Like, do you like 10 games all SEC, like just conference only stuff? And kind of the second part to that question is, if you could make any like reasonable changes to the schedule, what would you change?
Reasonable?
Well, there's probably plenty of outlandish things we could say. Like mine would be, if we could have swapped like Ole Miss or somebody like that for a non-conference like Louisville game, that would be mine.
Actually, mine would be, how about we flip the home and away with Florida? That way Florida has to come here in the cold.
That's a very good one, especially playing then towards it. Are they our last game?
They are our last game.
Last game. Yeah, it's like
End of November.
28th.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that would be great if we could have flipped that and played them in the cold, which never happens. I mean, this would have been the perfect year for that. And especially if we were to be coming into that game having maybe upset a team or just be in really good shape. I mean, can you imagine the hype going into that game if we were playing Florida at Kroger Field in the cold? Like if it was freezing cold.
It needs to be a night game too to make sure that it's cold, because November is weird here. It can be, of course, mild to us is freezing cold to them in the winter. So
yeah, pretty confident anything would pretty much send them. They'd be all just huddled up under the huge blankets and stuff. It'd be fun to watch though.
It would be.
I don't think they'd be very thrilled about that.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are the two really big ones. Great if we could have played Florida to cap off the season in Kroger Field, because then you'd feel really good about potentially winning that game. And yeah, I personally still wish we had a chance to beat up on Louisville again this year. That's kind of a bummer.
That'd be a guaranteed win at this juncture, looking at it. Now, of course, who's to say where they're going to be at come November?
True. You never know, especially when it comes to UK football. Get your hopes up, but just prepare for whatever. But I mean, that's really, like I said, take one of our, I don't want to say like easy games, because really you're talking all SEC. If you've got one easier team sandwiched in between like Georgia and Florida, nothing's really easy. But I would have taken one of the kind of lower ranked teams on our schedule and swapped them out for Louisville, because that would just be fun. Other than that, it just kind of is what it is. I mean, when you're talking all SEC, nothing else, no tune-up games, it's going to be a really hard schedule. The fact that so many of our hard games are away, my big question to kind of cap off the schedule is, what would you consider, I mean, just with how drastically different this year's going to be, looking at that schedule for what it is, what would you consider like just a good, satisfactory record?
6
looking at
wins.
that. Yeah.
If we can be one game over 500,
Yeah.
I will be tickled to death. But I won't be disappointed at a 500 season either, with the difficulty and everything and all the unknowns going forward through the season.
Yeah. Like looking at that, if we went 500, I mean, I wouldn't be jumping up and down. I'd be really happy. It would just be kind of a, kind of tepid season to me to say, okay, we beat all the teams we should have beaten. We lost to the teams that were going to be hard games. Probably should have beaten Tennessee, but whatever. It would just be kind of bleh.
And that's why I say 6 games, I'm happy. Tennessee, we need to start getting consistent on beating them and not letting it be a decade between each win. And make that happen. And that's going to be another step for the program. And that's why I kind of look at it as if it's a 6 win, I'm going to be happy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Like you said, we need to stop, especially when Tennessee is worse than us. Just objectively, when we should be better than them, we need to stop just handing them wins. If we're going to take another big step forward as a program, that's a program we've got to put behind us. I mean, if they get a win over us every now and then, that's fine, but we've got to start beating them. We've got to, having these streaks against Florida, which we finally got off our back, but we've got to do the same thing with Tennessee. I don't know. That Tennessee game always just makes me nervous because I always talk myself into, we got them this year. We've got, better pieces to our puzzle. Like, it's going to work in our favor. Like, this is the year they're finally going to shut up. And then we just kind of cough it up.
Oh, yeah, 1-win Tennessee team not too long ago, and should dominate. Yeah. And next thing you know, they beat us. But I'll give them credit. They did go on a 5-win winning streak, counting the game on us, and almost got bowl eligible.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
they had fixed their problems when they faced us.
Yeah. Now, I will say, if we were to be below 500 this year, that to me is
that's a step back.
That's a step back. That's especially as highly touted as this team is coming in preseason, all the hype surrounding them and everything. Yeah, that's a significant step back to me, and criticism that will inevitably roll in with Thunder is kind of duly deserved, where we have to step back and kind of reassess some things. But yeah, hopefully, realistically, I think 5-6 is kind of where we are. Hopefully, we can get those 5 that we should win under our belt, and beat Tennessee. And if we can get an upset over one of these other teams, like, that'd be terrific. But we just kind of have to take what we can get, right?
Yeah. Don't drink the Kool-Aid this year. Just don't. Just go into it with normal expectations and be happy with what you get.
Yeah, temper expectations and just understand, like, this totally unique set of circumstances, and really, in a lot of ways, we kind of just have to wait until the season's over and just look back and reassess, like, are we happy with this body of work? Let's kind of take it for what it is. No matter what, this season's going to have kind of an asterisk next to it anyway. We could underperform, and people will make excuses and say, well, but, we had to play these 5 teams and 4 of them were away, and this was crazy. We could also have another, like, really special year and do stuff that people didn't expect, and they'll still say, well, you only had to play, like, this many games, and it was different.
Or better yet, we come out swinging, make some upsets, and then they're like, oh, well, there's 2 games left in the season, but we're canceling the season.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? That's the thing, is right now we're still just kind of trudging ahead under the assumption that we're just going to play a full season. There's not going to be any hiccups. Hopefully, we'll see. Granted, a few months ago, I didn't even think we'd be at this point. So, like, I wasn't confident at all that football was really going to work out. But give credit where it's due. It seems like, at least at UK, they're doing a good job keeping the COVID stuff under wraps. Keeping stuff from really breaking out and being bad. When they have had positive tests and stuff roll in, they've contained it really well. And I think that's the most important thing, because it's going to happen inevitably. They're not just going to squash it out and not be present, especially on a football team with so many people. The biggest thing is, how do they address it when it does happen? And so far, when that sort of thing has happened, it's been small, and it's not been that big of a deal, at least from what I've seen. So I've been very happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, Auburn's already looking like they're going to be pretty much full strength this weekend. It was just a few weeks ago that they had quite
Yeah.
a few
Oh yeah.
numbers. So
Yeah, they've had a very large amount of players like over the last month or so just kind of be in the mix on, people that were infected or were exposed and had to be quarantined. And yeah, they had a real mess on their hands for a while just trying to get that contained. But like you said, it looks like they've pretty much got everybody for this week 1 game that we have down at Auburn. It looks like they are pretty much going to be at full strength. I think they said by kind of early this week they expected for everybody to be testing negative and be ready to go. Um, Granted, we'll just have to see. I'm not sure. I know they have access to rapid testing, so they're going to be testing people, very shortly before the game. I'm not sure if it's going to be like that morning or the night before, exactly how they're going to do that, but they do have stuff in place to where they can see up to way before, right before the game, who's going to be on hand and who's not. So that could lead to some really interesting things this year too, where you know we could go into a game expecting to get pounded, and all of a sudden they've got 10 guys that are out, or vice versa. So there's going to be a lot of just moving variables and interesting things like that going on, I feel like.
yeah, I mean, you could show up game day and they do tests and like, oh, half your team's going to sit out. Do you still got the players to play?
Yeah, I mean, we kick off this weekend. We kick off at noon, and we could see something at 10 o'clock in the morning that says, "Well, Terry Wilson and all these guys are just out. So just if you got enough guys, you know, the guys you have left, throw them in there and just see what happens." That's very plausible, and I wouldn't be shocked if something like that happens. But hopefully we can avoid that kind of stuff this year if they still just kind of maintain the protocols they have in place and just do a good job. Hopefully everybody in the SEC can do that and just keep everything safe and kind of reasonable. We'll just have to see. Like I said, Saturday, less than 48 hours from now, season kicks off. We're playing down at Auburn. I said a few minutes ago we are a 10.5 point underdog, which, how do you feel about that line?
I think it's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, I read an article on KSR, I think it was about Drew Franklin, about
Mhm.
Phil Steele had us as a lock of the week.
Yeah.
So
Which,
some people are saying we're, take it with a grain of salt.
yeah,
But
I've, it's interesting. I have been seeing more of that kind of stuff popping up over the week of people saying, like, who's your upset of the week? Most potential to do something like that. And a lot of them have been saying Kentucky, thinking that Auburn has potential to really overlook us. Um, which
Charles Barkley
honestly,
does.
yeah. Did you see where, yeah, Barkley said, not worried about them at all. We're worried, they play Georgia in week 2. So, I mean, it's plausible they could be overlooking us.
It could
And
be.
yeah, and looking ahead to Georgia if they don't really think we're worth the trouble. Cal did say that when he was on whatever he was on, he'd said that he'd shave his beard if we lost. So that'll, yeah, 10.5 points. I mean, I get it. I wouldn't really expect us to be just a single digit underdog. That kind of makes sense to me too. Especially there being just so many unknowns. It's the complexions of these teams going into the game. I mean, we're supposed to be kind of a veteran laden team. Everybody thinks that, you know, just as a collective unit, that we're going to be really good this year. Auburn is, they've had a lot of staff changes over the last few years, and they're replacing a lot of guys this year. So they have a lot of unknowns too, just in terms of how good their starters are going to be. I mean, they're replacing a lot of their secondary. How good they're going to have depth, but how good is that depth going to be once everything shakes out? What, in your opinion, like what are kind of the keys to the game on Saturday? Like just kind of looking at our team and what we think that team's going to be.
As far as our team goes, I think it depends on, do they show up? It is an early game.
Yeah.
In the past, those have been bad games for us, but it
Mhm.
is going to be technically a noon game for us versus an 11 a.m. game for them.
Yeah.
So anything's possible, and I'm hoping they're overlooking and going to Georgia, looking at
Yeah.
that game. But
Yeah. It's kind of a 1-2 punch. They could be overlooking us, and we could be catching them just rolling out of bed. So maybe that kind of stuff plays in our favor. Maybe not. Who knows? I don't really honestly have any idea how seriously Auburn's taking us, but yeah, if they were overlooking us, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for us.
It wouldn't be, but let's face it, they've always had a pretty good team. The
Oh
West
yeah.
always been more competitive, and they've always
Hmm.
been towards the top. So
Hmm. Absolutely. What I we kind of said this before. What I'm really curious to see is kind of just the complexion of what the offense is going to look like. Um, Curious to see, like I said, if Terry Wilson's going to be able to kind of scramble, if he's going to be able to run and play like a dual threat quarterback, or if that knee's going to hold him back. I'm really curious to see if the offensive line is going to be as good as they're saying it's going to be. If they're going to offer him the protection to be able to make good passes, and if that happens, if he's going to be able to have a high completion rate, a good percentage. I mean, we've seen a lot of ups and downs with him in his first season and 2 games that he's been here. Plus the fact that there's just probably going to be a lot of rust to knock off with him because he's played Eastern Michigan and Toledo in the last couple of years, and that's it.
yeah,
So
and I got a feeling Auburn's defense is going to apply a lot of pressure, make him take deep shots.
yeah.
Um, they'll probably leave the slants open even a little bit because historically he either overthrows or underthrows on the
Mhm.
corner outs. So
Yeah,
makes it
especially as good as their defensive line is going to be. I think we really need to see when Terry is throwing. We need to see him making just a healthy completion percentage, because if he's just throwing it all over the place, like you said, throwing it short, throwing it long, guys are getting hit and they're just dropping it. Then if Auburn has a chance to crowd the box and keep our running backs, or Terry, if he's able to do it really well, if they're able to crowd the box and really clamp down on our rushing efforts, then I think we're kind of in trouble
yeah.
on the offensive side of things. Like that's going to be what really does us in on the offensive side of the ball. Um, I know Auburn, it's Auburn, so they're going to be rushing a lot. Hopefully, our defensive line will be able to kind of thwart that so they can make Nix throw a lot more. I know, doing a little bit of research, I know Nix's um, completion percentage last year was okay, but not great. So the best thing we can do is try to just stifle the rush and keep him throwing the ball, and just hope that our secondary can step up and do something, to really keep those receivers from bringing it in. Um, yeah, a lot of variables at play, and just a lot of big question marks that I think in the first half of that game are probably going to be answered.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern with this year's team. Probably is the secondary right behind the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, those are your big things. Like, most people have the general consensus, nationally or in Lexington, that we're going to be able to compete with people up front really well. It's just quarterback play. Where do we stand with that? Even if heaven forbid Terry gets hurt again, if we have a backup like Bo Allen or Joey Gatewood take over, how good are they going to be? And yeah, if that secondary can keep them from just throwing it like crazy on us, defensive line can be really good, but if our secondary, does some things like they've done in the past that's really made us scratch our heads, then it might be all for naught.
Right.
So, I know they are saying that the crowd capacity is like what, 20%, seems like kind of the going rate right now. Um, Something I'd read yesterday was saying that they're trying to make it mostly students, so they'll have a really good loud atmosphere, but that they're also now kind of worried that because it's such an early game, that they're not going to have as many students show up. So
Well, that and if they do, they're going to have to be spread out. So you take 20,000
yeah,
people in a stadium
right,
their size. I think it's 80,000 or more.
yeah,
Um, and you have them spread out like that, the noise isn't going to be that bad.
yeah. No, I mean, and that's the thing. Most of these, football stadiums, you're talking 20% capacity. You could, like you said, you can only get so loud. To me, it's just going to be interesting if, I mean, 20% is not going to visually look that impressive anyway. But if they do have a very underwhelming turnout, and if the place looks almost empty, I'll be curious if that has any effect on the game at all. I mean, it's going to be weird anyway, just watching, an SEC stadium with practically nobody in it.
If anything else, it's going to seem more like a scrimmage to the guys.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, really, it it's going to be a really interesting little factor that we'll kind of see play out over the next few weeks. We'll see how that really changes games, especially when we're playing these really good teams, whether it's home or away. To see, like when we play Georgia, we're not going to have any really crowd support. So is that going to hurt us? Probably. You know, Saturday, the fact that we're basically going to just be playing in an empty building, is that going to actually favor us more? I don't know. It's definitely going to be weird.
A lot of unknowns this year. So
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely going to be strange. I've kind of gotten used to like the NBA style of things where they have the boards and stuff around. At least a little bit of NBA I've been watching, but I don't think there's really any way you can normalize like a SEC size stadium that basically has no one there.
no,
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit bizarre, but you know, it's 2020, so I guess that's just kind of the norm for this year. Things just being bizarre and unique, and just not really knowing from one week to the next what things are going to look like. Um, that's pretty much all I got for season opener against Auburn. Do you have anything to add or anything you think we missed?
and I think we pretty much got it all covered, at least from what information we currently have.
Yeah, a lot's just kind of waiting to see how things are going to look. We'll probably have a lot more to say going into week 2 after we've kind of seen what our team looks like against really good top 10 competition.
Yeah, we may have to have several episodes on that
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
post game show. So
Hmm. Yeah, we very easily could. Right. Well, I guess if that's all we got for this week, well, thank everybody for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe this video. Hit us in the comments section. We'd really like to hear what you have to say. You have anything to add, anything disagree on us with? Love to hear from you. Be really interesting. At some point, we're going to get this stuff up on iTunes, so you can listen to our content that way. And yeah, we'll get back to you guys after this first week. Well, I'm sure we're going to have plenty to say next week about just kind of the results of the Auburn game and how everything looked. And yeah, we'll take a dive in. Maybe there'll be some more basketball news we can kind of touch on, and we'll kind of take things into week 2, kind of see where everything is. So yeah, unless you got anything else, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.